Welcome to topic 2, what do we mean by collaboration and partnering? It's really important to build a common language and understanding about what we mean by collaboration and partnering, or we can think we're aiming at the same thing when in fact we're not. Collaboration and partnering is used in very different ways to mean different things. Here's one example of how to think about collaboration on a continuum. In this continuum, the level of trust at this end and the level of engagement, the level of risk sharing is very different than at this end. All points along the continuum are fine, but what we need to do is work out what's the purpose, what are we trying to achieve, and then have some common language to describe that. So at the networking level, you might go to lots of meetings where people share information, but then they go away and don't change anything as a result of sharing that information. We don't need a high degree of trust or risk sharing. We don't require sharing of power just to do networking, and that's fine. As you move down the continuum through coordinating, cooperating, and into collaborating, that level of trust, that level of engagement, that level of risk and sharing of turf or power increases. And it's at this end, the collaboration end of this continuum, where you reach something that these days is called transformational partnering. Another way to think of this continuum is one that was developed by James Austin. In this continuum, he moves from what he calls philanthropic through to transformational partnering. At the philanthropic level, this is kind of where sponsorship fits, for example. This is usually one way where usually it's money and usually it's pretty top down. So somebody's got the money, they provide it to somebody else down here, and basically you do what you're told in terms of the money. It's usually a funder-provider kind of model. And that is often called a partnership, even though it's not what we might think of as partnership. Then you move along to what's called transactional. In the transactional space, it's more equal. You do this, I do that. Usually it's a more contractual arrangement, and it's very clear who needs to do what in that relationship. Moving along the continuum, where again, increasing levels of trust, engagement, sharing of risk and opportunity is what Austin calls an integrative relationship or partnership. This is where people sit around the table around a shared purpose. And recently, he's added to this continuum a thing called transformational partnership, which is really about moving the integrative partnership, where people sit around the table around a common purpose, into focusing on transformational change or reform. The Smith family, when they did their annual report and review a few years ago, used this framework to analyse all their partnerships, sort them out, work out what they were doing in which space. So again, useful in terms of thinking about what kind of partnership or relationship are we actually in. As previously mentioned, the value of both continuums is establishing the common language, the kind of collaboration or relationship or partnership we're talking about, and making sure it's the kind we need for the results we're seeking. It doesn't mean they're right or wrong. It's just about what kind of relationship we need to achieve the goals we're trying to get to. So things like networking, philanthropy, or sponsorship require little trust or engagement. And so they're at this end of the spectrum. Whereas when we're getting up to needing systems change or innovation, we're looking for much more transformational relationships which require a high level of engagement and a deep level of trust. You could use either of those continuums, whichever works for you. It doesn't really matter. The key message is knowing what kind of relationship we want to be in, for what purpose, and that different approaches are required for different purposes. Another key message is if we're looking for innovation, then we really must be looking at that transformational end of partnering. Looking at collaboration from the perspective of innovation then, this is a model that I find quite useful. So on this side, the innovation triangle says if we know what we need to do, and all we need to do is do more of it to get better, then we do a whole lot of doing. We do less creating new because we already know what we need to do. And we do less learning. It's more like a continuous quality improvement cycle. In this space, networking, coordination, cooperation, sponsorship, transaction are all fine because we know what we need to do. But if we need to do new, and we're talking about innovation, that's when we need to do less doing. We need to experiment, try things out. We need to create new and innovative ways of doing things. And we need to collaborate about what we're learning from that in order to achieve the innovation. That's where transformational partnering is required in this space. Now, it's important to note that once we do learn what works and consistently works, we can move it across. So if we're in a transformational partnership and we're really innovating and learning about what to do differently, and we manage to get consistent results with that innovation, we can move it across to a more traditional or transactional relationship because we know what to do and we just need to get on and do it. So for me, this helps sort out what do we need in what space. So let's talk about what the definition of a transformational partnership looks like. It's a relationship between diverse stakeholders addressing a complex issue or need with a common purpose, sharing the risks and benefits, contributing resources, expertise, information, co-creating strategies and solutions to achieve change and innovation. For me, it's that rock in the river that gets the biggest ripple effect. Some of the other terms that are being used to talk about transformational partnering at the moment are things like collective impact and shared impact. So, what have we got to build on at the moment? What is your organisation's partnering experience so far? Where on the continuum do you think most of the partnerships and collaborations you're involved in sit now? And that might be appropriate that they sit in those spaces. What's working well? And what would it take to move them along the continuum if you wanted to? What are some of the key things that might be getting in the way of those partnerships or collaborations being successful and making the changes that you were hoping to achieve? Have a think about this. Talk to members of your partnerships about it and consider what else might need to be done.